god, it's going live.
Is this being recorded, FYI?
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, I can see that it's been recorded.
Attendees are starting to come in. Whoop, whoop.
How do you know? Oh, wait, I do see this.
See a couple of people coming in, yeah.
Joey's back. Hi, Joey.
Number one,
Go on, Joey.
VIP. We need some like soda music for this little period, don't we? Not soda, sorry, Trinnovo. Sorry.
Yeah. Why don't you just start humming or singing, rapping?
I can't sing. I can't do that.
No, What time is it?
28.
Dos más.
Probably want to
How's
give
your
it a
week
few
been,
minutes
guys?
after.
Have you had a good week so far?
Yes, not bad.
In isolation?
In isolation. Have you seen Trinnovo's Strava group? Now that is going to keep me insane for a while.
Yeah, Nick put down quite a good time today.
Did he?
Yeah, it's beat my best. So
I haven't seen that. Is he in Trinnovo Tigers?
I'm not 100% sure where he posted it, but he posted it on the page. It was 7.5 minute miles for about, I think it was like 7-8 miles.
Oh, you mean exercise and running?
Mm.
Yeah.
I could
You'd have to take your dressing gown off for that, Alex. It's probably not a bit of you.
Last time I checked, this was the
someone.
recruitment coaching couch session.
It is, Alex, it is.
Thank you.
I hope everyone is in their dressing gowns
Exactly.
at home.
Right, come on, attendees. Let's get going.
So we've got two. We'll give it another minute and then we'll get started.
I might post that photo we just took on Facebook. We're live.
Yeah, do it and send the link.
Ta-da. Oh, hold on. Where's the link again? Hey, let's find it.
Our tech skills have improved though.
Yeah, they have. We're on Zoom. All in a row. Okay, should we get things started?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So welcome back to the Recruitment Coaching Couch Sessions webinar. This is webinar 2. And today we're going to be looking at job searching during uncertain times. So I'm Lucy Neal, the marketing manager for Trinnovo Group. We're made up of 3 distinct recruitment brands, including Trust in Soda, an IT and digital recruitment agency, Broadgate Search, a finance and governance recruitment agency, and BioTalent, a life sciences recruitment agency. So we'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us this evening for our live Q&A panel. We will be discussing the latest tips, advice and support on unemployment during uncertain times. So today we're going to be diving into job searching. We'll be looking at using job boards to discover the latest opportunities, tips on using LinkedIn during your job search, and the power of networking and building your network. So a bit of housekeeping before we get started. You will be muted upon entry, but if you do have any questions throughout, please do feel free to input them on the chat box you'll see to the right hand side of the screen, and we'll get through as many of those as possible. And also, just so everyone is aware, the webinar is being recorded. So just so everyone's on the same page. So today I'm joined with Oliver Perry, a senior recruitment consultant from Soda. We've got Alex Sharika, a senior recruitment consultant from Broadgate Search, and Taylor Welpton, a senior recruitment consultant from BioTalent. So first things first, guys and girl, should we do some introductions? So introduce your name, your role, and your experience. We'll start with you, Ollie.
Yeah, I'll go first. So it's Oliver. So I'm from Tristan Soda. So we're the niche tech brand out of Trinnovo Group. Yeah, I'm based in Dublin.
Perfect. And you, do you want to go next, Alex?
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I work for Broadgate Search for the finance side, and I recruit specifically for compliance and financial crime in fintech. And I've been doing this for 3 years now.
Wow, okay. And Taylor?
So I'm Taylor. I work for BioTalent, which is Trinnovo's life sciences brand. I recruit for engineering project professionals, and I've been working in recruitment about 2 years now.
Okay, so we'll start with you, Alex. So you may experience a few knockbacks during your job search, but how do you remain positive?
Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention on this one is that when a candidate experiences a knockback and you're working with a recruiter, believe me when I say that your recruiter is also experiencing that knockback with you. Like, you're both going through that emotional journey, and we have learned to bounce back very quickly from this. But one thing that I would always just keep in mind, it's all a mental game. If you were in employment before, there's a reason you were there and the value that you were adding to that company. So if you keep that in mind, that there was something that you did at the other company, there's no reason why another company won't see the value that you can bring in. And there are always opportunities, always. So it's just having that mental strength to think, no, there is definitely something out there for me. And sometimes scaling back will give you a much clearer vision and probably keep you more optimistic, rather than, applying to 20 things in one go, but not actually taking the time to think about your application in detail, research the company, who can you see on LinkedIn that works there, figure out the team. I would say it takes a solid hour or longer to do your full research on a company, to understand them, and then make your application. You can't do 20 of those in a day. So yeah, keep positive by knowing that there will be something out there. Continue to network and keep networking, and scale back as well. That's what I would say. What about you guys? What do you think?
Does anyone else have an input?
I just say, if you are being contacted by recruiters, if you are getting to initial stages, there is definitely something that people are seeing in your capabilities and experience. So definitely see that as a positive. Any knockbacks further down the line, take the accomplishment of getting that far in the process and learn from it. That's the biggest thing, making sure you come back to the next process as a better candidate than what you were before. But yeah, I completely agree with Alex and the points she made.
Yeah, and feedback's really important on that point, in terms of if it's through a recruiter or not. The need for feedback in anything you do is really important. So if you don't get that, make sure you do your utmost to go get that feedback, because that will help with your positivity. If you know where you went wrong, or if you know you should have done X, like Taylor says, then make sure you do it next time.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice from each and every one of you. So we'll move on to you next, Ollie. Is it best practice to follow up on your job application?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It should be part and parcel of your applications. It's obviously different for different people in different sectors, but mainly applications will be getting multiple. There may not be a high volume, but if you're going through a recruiter or direct, the person you're dealing with will have more to deal with in that one application. So best practice for your own chance of getting through the door is to follow up. We're taught in the world of sales, and I'm not saying this how it should be, but we're taught in the world of sales that it's 5 to 8 touch points to get through to somebody. That obviously should not be the case in job applications, right? Like best case scenario, it should be 1, but on the same theory, to get through to somebody, following up also with the personal touch, a job application can be non-personal sometimes if it's a click of a button. If you have to send your CV somewhere, sometimes a personal follow-up directly to that person's email, LinkedIn or whatever, follow-ups like that can give you such a better chance of getting yourself an interview. So yeah, it's non-negotiable to ensure you follow up with all your applications.
Amazing. Okay. And Taylor, what are your hot tips on using LinkedIn during your job search?
So for anyone who joined us last week, we had April from LinkedIn who came in to discuss the benefits of using it in the process. April provided some really good statistics. So 95% more views on your profile if you have a profile picture. I mean, it seems very basic, but it's definitely something that you can change simply. Also, if you don't have a full, complete LinkedIn profile, it's going to be very difficult for a recruiter or a company to stumble across your profile. It's very simple to build your experience by just copy and pasting from your CV straight onto your LinkedIn. And because we use Boolean search to find keywords on your LinkedIn profile, you want to make sure that you have all your experience included in very generic terms so that when recruiters or HR professionals are looking, they will be able to pull your profile up very quickly. Sharing and posting articles that are relevant to your industry, that's definitely a key one, something Alex is very good at. Ollie mentioned previously that 5 points of contact to make a sale. Those points of contact don't necessarily need to be in person. If a hiring manager has seen your proactivity on LinkedIn, he's seen that you've shared relevant information prior to the interview stage, or like all of us do, when he goes onto your LinkedIn, because everyone does it, everyone will go on the LinkedIn profile of who they're interviewing before. If he can see that you are sharing relevant information, that you are passionate about the industry, that's going to go it's going to help a whole lot in actually selling your profile to the person. One other thing we've seen quite a lot of recently is individuals posting about their specific situation. So people who have been laid off from work, who have had contracts ended early and have had to cancel plans or change things, have posted on LinkedIn, but not in a negative light, in a positive way. And positivity sells 100% if people are seeing that somebody is proactively going on LinkedIn and trying to better their situation with a smile on their face. That again is going to be a huge selling factor. And I know a lot of candidates who have had hiring managers email them personally because they've seen that status and because they have roles which they think the person will be a good fit for. So yeah, just proactivity as much as possible and do the basics.
Amazing. Do any of you guys have any other hot tips that you'd like to add for LinkedIn?
I've got something that I'm on it a lot. Yeah, I definitely say that. But one thing I think that's very underrated is that when you make a new connection on LinkedIn, it gives you the option of, thanks for connecting, and it'll be thanks for connecting with an exclamation mark. I know that that's automated. I know that. Half of people don't even do it. But if you actually write a personalized message or just say something like, oh, hey, Alex, really good to connect. I also work in financial crime. You put the time and effort into me to write that message. I'm going to put the time and effort into writing a message back to you. And the same is going to apply to anyone, not just recruiters, but anyone that you connect with. Follow up with that. They've connected with you possibly either just to get rid of the notification or because they saw your profile and they thought that there's meaning in there, various reasons, but you don't know what their reason is. So it's always good to follow that up with just a nice personalized message. That's my tip.
Amazing. I couldn't agree with you anymore. So back to the network side, Ollie, what are the main benefits of building, cultivating and utilizing your network of contacts?
Yeah, I spoke a little bit about this last week in terms of how unpersonal job applications are sometimes, and the ability to personalize your job search using your network, if that's your even as close as your family network, your professional network, your personal network. Obviously LinkedIn is a great platform where a lot of that lives, but utilizing that creates such a personal touch to any application or any approach that you make. Silly exercises like if you were looking for a job now, and you use LinkedIn, you have been using LinkedIn for a while, a simple exercise going through all of your first connections. I was doing it last night just randomly, and there's people there that you forget about, or people that you've worked with in the past that you forget about. If you did an exercise of going through all your first connections and dropping them a simple message to tell them about your situation, say, look, I'm looking for this, X, Y, and Z. This is what I do. We work together, X. Can you help? It's very rarely, if you ask people for help in those situations, especially when you're connected, it's very rarely that you won't get the help. I think it will diversify your job search so much more now, in terms of just waiting for a job advert to come online and clicking that apply button. I'd almost recommend going to do that networking bit first. Obviously, and when we're back to normal, there's so many face-to-face networking events that you should go to, industry specific. I'd always recommend getting amongst your peers. At the moment, I'm seeing loads of great stuff in terms of online networking, webinars. I would implore you to get onto these and tune in, because what it also allows you to do is refer back to something. So if you are contacting somebody, be it a recruiter, be it an old colleague, be it a hiring manager, whatever that may be, you can refer back to something you saw them on, or you were on a webinar with them, or whatever that may be. That reference point sometimes can be the thing that makes you stand out. So yeah, absolutely. Cultivate right now, especially when we're all online. Give yourself the chance to build that online network, because it will definitely help in your job search.
Amazing. Does anyone else have any input for that question? Alex, you're muted. Hang on. There you go.
Who did that?
I don't know. That wasn't me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was just saying, I completely agree with that. I don't think you can ever devalue the relationships that you have. And in recruitment or in sales generally, you're going to look at what's warm, like what relationships are warm, where can you get your contacts from, and how can you give a good impression? If you've got two candidates, for instance, both technically very good, but one person knows the other person because they went to an event together or something, that relationship aspect can have such a massive leverage. If they got along, or they went for a beer after or something, it can make a big difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if you utilize your network to get any kind of recommendation, referral, verbal or written, that will help massively as well. So not only contacting your network about any job opportunities, but also contacting your network about any recommendations. I know LinkedIn obviously has a feature where you can offer a recommendation that sits on your profile. Stuff like that's just brilliant. So yeah, make sure you before trawling Indeed.com, I'd always recommend going to your network first. And that network might be recruiters, right? That might be recruiters you've worked with in the past, recruiters that you know are embedded in your industry and may have some great connections. Do you know what I mean? So it's networking is obviously more than just the people you've worked with. It's quite broad, and you should always go there first, in my suggestion.
Amazing. Couldn't agree with you more. Just so everyone's aware, attendees, if anyone wants to ask any questions, please do input them to the right hand side of the screen on the chat box.
I think you have to click chat first, don't you? If you click chat at the bottom, it should then pop up for everyone on the right hand side.
Try and get through as many of those as possible. So let's go back to you, Alex. So how do you look after your health and well-being during times of uncertainty in your job hunt?
Oh,
Wear a dressing gown.
Yeah. Positive spirit. How do you look after your health and well-being? Okay, I think if we take this period of quarantine as an example, it's such a personal thing, but it will come down to what habits did you have before, maybe when you were working, like, going out in the morning for a walk, could replicate your journey into work, or having your coffee breaks and then having your lunch and stuff like that. So that's what I've done. I'm not a massive gym goer, so I'm not going to all of a sudden implement gym into my life 7 days a week just because we're working from home and we have to exercise at home. The simplest thing is just to have a structure or a daily plan every single day, where you can kind of replicate that work mantra, really. I think it's something we've had to get used to with Trinnovo, you know, so that's personally what I would say. And if you're not sure where to get started, online is the best thing. You've got online classes for everything: well-being, meditation, yoga, exercise, cooking, so many different things online, that you can quite easily book up your diary for the day with things that you want to do and what's going to keep you healthy and happy and safe, because that's a priority. So yeah.
Definitely. Does anyone else have any ideas on health and well-being during uncertain times?
Say small, manageable targets. Obviously, the end goal is going to be to achieve a new job, but it's going to be very difficult to do that very quickly. So maybe start off by having a goal to get 5 recruiters, getting your profile out there, then maybe to get 3 interviews with different companies. That way you are constantly feeling like you are achieving something each day and you are working towards the bigger goal.
Yeah. And on that, just don't feel the need to rush. You're not gonna, I mean, if you can find a job in a week, which in contract is probably quite possible, but if you're looking for a permanent role, you have to be very, very realistic with your expectations in terms of when you're going to get a job. Some jobs, if they're senior positions, are going to have 3 months notice periods, or they might have an interim person and you're going to have to wait a couple of months. So just like Taylor said, having manageable expectations and then not burning yourself out with thinking, crap, let me make 20 applications a day and then one of them will stick. Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah. My thing on positivity, two things is, for me, the most important thing is the ability to surround yourself with positive people. So I know it's obviously we're all in lockdown now, but with the ability of FaceTimes and webinars and house parties and stuff, it is genuinely really important to surround yourself with your friends, surround yourself with positive people and stuff, because that will your own mental health is affected by your environment. So put yourself in a positive environment, and that will always help.
Definitely agree with you there. That could help you, guide you through these times. Definitely. Do we have any questions coming through?
Joey's got a good question. I like that.
Over to you then, Ollie.
Yeah, no, because I talked about this earlier, because I was talking about follow up, and then I was talking about feedback, and obviously feedback is such a taboo is not the right word, but such like a hot topic in the world of recruitment, right? Because so many times a recruiter or a candidate will not get the feedback they deserve or they need, or even sometimes the other way around, a client might not get the feedback that they need from a candidate who's rejected an offer or whatever. So just for the recording's sake, Joey's question: how do you get feedback when your CV was put forward to a client and it wasn't selected? The usual response are generic without full details. I have received this from perm roles mostly. So I guess there's two lines of inquiry here. If you're going through a recruiter, you want to make sure with confidence that it's not the recruiter letting you down, because unfortunately there is instances, and I've spoken to loads of candidates, where they haven't even had a response from a recruiter, right? So if you're not getting absolutely anything from the recruiter, not answering your phone, answering an email, that's one line of inquiry. And my suggestion to that would be go directly to the person, the hiring manager. Do not feel the feedback to you as a candidate is way more important than going around a recruiter's back in that instance. If a recruiter's not answering the phone and not coming back to you, I would always advise going straight to that person. Obviously, you may not have contact details. LinkedIn's probably the best way to do it, but not in an aggressive way, but make sure that they know that you haven't received any feedback. The other line of inquiry is, I guess, if you have had feedback and it's generic or doesn't specify anything, again, reverting back to following up, you have to follow up on that. Do not take that as acceptable. Do not let a recruiter say that's acceptable. I would go back and you want to frame it in a word of, like Taylor was saying about having to maybe change your approach next time. You as an individual want to do the best you can in your interviews and your applications, and you want to say that to a client when they give you feedback. It's not an aggressive, oh, you haven't given me an interview, that's unacceptable. It has to be framed as, look, I want to improve myself. Please let me know where I fell down in this application, and frame it that way. And doing it that way will hopefully ensure the client sees the benefit of giving you that feedback. So he's also topped it up. Bulk stops from recruiters. Most times the hiring manager isn't disclosed. So Joey's topped up his question there in the sense that it's through a recruiter. So if when the hiring manager isn't disclosed, I guess he's referring to getting put forward to a role, you only know the client and then you never get any feedback. Again, you want to trust your recruiter. You want to trust your recruiter so he's doing what he needs to be doing or she needs to be doing at that point. If for whatever reason you don't trust your recruiter or they're not communicating with you, I would probably go and try and find who that hiring manager is. If you have the ability to find out, if you're applying for a software developer role, you give yourself a good chance that the software development manager or the CTO is someone who should have received your CV or should have got feedback. So I'd implore you to do a bit of investigation and contact that person to get that feedback. So one, find yourself a good recruiter that you can trust, and hopefully they'll do the good work for you. Two, if they don't, I would suggest going around them and getting the feedback that you deserve.
I would also just say on that point, it is important to manage expectations. I do see a lot of candidates who will pose that question when all they've done is click apply on LinkedIn without any follow-up and then expecting feedback. It is very important to only go for roles that you know you can add value to, but also, like Ollie said, work with recruiters that you trust who will provide you honest feedback. And only really chase up feedback for roles that you've had a discussion with someone about. The recruiter has told you which client it is. That's the only definitive way to know that you have been sent forward to it. And if your recruiter is not giving you the basics, there's a lot of recruitment companies out there who won't disclose the client. There's a reason they're probably not disclosing them. And all we can say there is work with recruiters you trust. They will be able to get roles similar to that or that role, and they will provide you honest feedback.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. So Taylor, back to you. How do you attract employers during uncertain times?
So outside of LinkedIn, I'd say the key thing is just proactivity. You could be the best person in your market at your role. If nobody knows you're available or looking for a new position, how are you going to get a new job? So that proactivity, it can come in many forms. It can be, like Ollie mentioned, networking with people you've previously worked with who've moved on to other companies, working out where there could be gaps, letting them know you're available and asking them to circulate your details internally. It could be putting your CV out on multiple job boards. So when you apply to one position online, say it's through CV Library, then your CV will be updated on there, and recruiters and HR staff will have access to it. One of the things candidates fail to do is really have full market coverage, which is achieved by applying to jobs and refreshing your CV on multiple different job boards. So this will allow many different recruiters who have access to different job boards the knowledge that you are now available and looking for a role. But yeah, just any way you can think that you can proactively get the fact out there that you are now looking for a new position. If that's contacting people, if that's asking for references on LinkedIn, if that's posting on LinkedIn and writing stories, been great. But yeah, as long as you are having a proactive approach and not waiting for these recruiters or HR professionals to come to you, you will definitely get offers.
Amazing. Does anyone else have any input for that question?
Perfectly answered, Taylor.
Okay, we've had a question through from Thomas Moore. Thank you for putting the question through. So where do you start to find recruiters to work with, and how many recruiters is a good number to work with?
Question.
Over to you, Alex.
I'd say like with any profession, you take you take any recommendations and referrals from other people. If you was going to call a plumber, you wouldn't just Google plumber. You would speak to people around you who would recommend a service. People always recommend good recruiters. Anyone who's helped them to get a good job and manage the process well, everyone's always happy to recommend. So ask within your network. Failing that, then I'd probably say start to look online, look for specialist agencies, and probably avoid generic agencies, because then you will be spammed with random positions which don't align to what you do.
Yeah, and just to top that up as well, if you get contacted by a recruiter, so if you were to put your CV on multiple job boards or LinkedIn, you'd probably get some kind of contact from a recruiter. The first thing I would be doing is to research that recruiter, their LinkedIn profile, their company web page and stuff, just to make sure it aligns to what you want. And then be very forthcoming when asking about kind of how many to work with. It's difficult really, because in an ideal world, you find a recruiter that you trust, that has complete monopoly over their market, understands the market you want to job it inside and out, and then you would give that recruiter your sole attention and give them the ability to do it all for you, if that makes sense. That's in an ideal world. If you have to use multiple recruiters, I would just ensure that you've done your research on them, maybe have a recommendation, and you make sure they're honest with you about what they're doing, who they're approaching. Are they doing proactive approaching for you, or are they just sending you to one particular vacancy? So, yeah, it's a tricky one to answer, but I would just make sure that you and the recruiter are on the same page as to how they're working on your behalf.
Because recruiters are specialists in one niche segment, they should have really solid market info within what you do. And during that first discussion, it should be very easy to tell whether this is an industry expert or somebody who is asking questions from the sheet to make sure you are ticking boxes on what the specification is saying. Feel free to test their technical knowledge on the area. Make sure that this is actually the area they work in, because if it's not, then they'll only be able to put you forward to the role you've applied for. If this is the area they work in every single day, speaking to clients day in, day out, they're going to get off the phone from you, call the hiring managers they work with and let them know you're available. So like Ollie said, that's the way to get a proactive approach from your recruiter. Just really work with the best.
I would just echo that as well. The referral thing, 100%. And then something I mentioned earlier about the relationship piece is super, super important, because if a client says to me that they're looking for someone who's a financial crime manager with XYZ, I already know 3 people at the top of my head who I actually want to put forward for that, because they're the 3 people that talk to me regularly. They're people that I ask questions all the time. It's a relationship. And you need to, when you say how many people it's good to work with, how many people can you manage that level of relationship with? That's what I would say, because you need to give a good chunk of your time, and you're going to be on the phone for at least half an hour initially to go through your motivations, absolutely everything. Generically, maybe say 3 to 5 max. And the reason I would say that is because every agency, for instance, is going to have relationships with different clients. So just like you said earlier, Taylor, different recruiters will have different relationships with different clients. So I might be working with 10. So that means you by default as a candidate could potentially have 10 relationships there. Add another recruiter, another 10 there. By the end of it, you've got 30. So yeah, not too many, but also not just one.
Okay, and we've had another question through from Joey. So how do you approach job vacancies when the recruiter commits to sign our, sorry.
It's Heath and Loose.
When the recruiter commits you to sign, you're represented by them. However, the truth is there are other agencies putting up their candidates for the job, and your CV might not make it to the hiring manager's intro, but you still see the jobs advertised by the client directly. Is it acceptable to apply directly, even though you had confirmed to be fully represented by a particular recruiting agency?
Probably it all comes down to trust again. Do you trust the person that's putting you forward, and do you trust that they've done what they said they're going to do? If not, then there is always a chance that they haven't. And in that case, you do need to weigh up your options and consider applying direct. As a recruiter, we expect that level of trust because we definitely provide it to the candidates. So any candidate I work with, I would expect them to wholeheartedly trust myself and the process. But if the recruiter is not able to provide why you haven't got feedback, then yeah, there should be question marks. So speak to the recruiter first, find out exactly why you've not heard anything, why the role is still advertised. If they have a valid reason, if the role's been put on hold, if the hiring manager has seen the profile, isn't moving on with it, and they haven't had a chance to tell you, then I wouldn't consider applying directly. If they aren't able to provide a good reason, if you don't have that base level of trust, that's when you would consider making a direct application. If you do make a direct application, it's not going to come back on you and affect your job chances after going with another recruiter. At the end of the day, it is entirely the candidate's decision if they want to be represented by a recruitment agency or not. And that's not something that can be pulled halfway through the process. So yeah, just again, trust, and like Alex mentioned, make sure the relationship's there.
Yeah, there's a few points, there's a few scenarios within that question, I guess, Joey. So first things first, if you were to know a company were advertising, but also you've been approached by a recruiter about that role, at that point you have two choices, right? You have the choice to apply directly, or you have the choice to be represented by the recruiter. There is pros and cons to both, and I think traditionally people would presume that if you apply directly, you give yourself a better chance, but you wouldn't believe the actual level of service that should go into going through a recruiter. If you're going through a recruiter, that recruiter is basically your agent. It's exactly what they are, and they should be helping you along the process, but also communicating with the client to better your chances of getting that role. So pros and cons, if you talk about the step one, if you know someone's recruiting, you could go through directly by clicking a button, or you could have a conversation with the recruiter. There's pros and cons to both. If we move down the timeline and you talk about if you have given your representation to a recruiter and then you haven't had the feedback you want and you're undecided if you should apply, this is tricky, right? Because if a recruiter has put you forward and then you apply directly, it probably does reduce your chances of getting that interview, because some clients will see it as I don't know, poor communication, or they'll see it as that you're not on top of your applications because you're sending your representation to a client and a recruiter and apply directly. So it's tricky at that point. Again, we refer back to it. If a recruiter cannot offer you anything about your status of your application, there's absolutely no harm in finding out what's happened directly. So that question is really interesting, actually, because there's a few different kind of scenarios within it. But yeah, if you have said to a recruiter in writing, put me forward to this role, and then you apply directly afterwards, sometimes that can obviously reduce your chances of getting the interview.
Like Alex said, sorry, Alex, go on.
Just on that, Joey, I know we've spoken before, but you need to grill your recruiter, and grill completely, like, how do you even know the hiring manager? What does that company fully do? What is the role about? All of these different things. If it's going to help you build trust with that person, if they give you a flaky answer, or they say, oh, it's this manager. Well, if they say that, go on LinkedIn and see if it's an actual person in the first place, and do a lot of digging. Definitely test your recruiters.
I'd also say what Ollie was saying about the value that recruiters offer. I have so many candidates come to me and send me a job specification that they found online and say, Taylor, I want to go forward for this role. Can you do it for me? The reason being, we are experts in managing the process. There are so many times when a hiring manager will say no at face value to a CV, yet when I can relay the discussions I've had with that individual and sell in their experience, then that turns to an interview. It's a free service working with a recruiter, and if they truly are industry experts in their field, then it is such a value added service to have them carrying you through the process, as opposed to someone who's potentially in HR, whose job it is to get you on board as cheaply as possible. Our job is to find you the best role and make sure that you get the most amount of money for the service that you're offering.
Okay, and we've had another question through from Miklos. Thanks, Miklos. So how do you figure out what's missing or what's wrong with your CV or LinkedIn profile if you're not receiving feedback or responses from your job applications?
I'm just on your LinkedIn page now, Miklos. So I was doing a little trying to find it.
We'll do a live workshop.
Live workshop.
I mean, first and foremost, have you clicked open to opportunities? Because that's a big one. Alex, can you double check that?
I can confirm.
Yes, he has.
That's the biggest flag to let recruiters know that you are on the market. Once that's happened, you need to make sure that your information breakdown from each role is accurate, includes keywords of your field, and just really demonstrates your experience in a positive light.
Yeah, Miklos, you're I'm on it as well. You're a student at Code Institute, which I love. They're a brilliant company, and I've worked with them in the past. And yeah, I'll definitely. In terms of the actual answer to a question, it's really hard, isn't it? If no one's giving you any feedback on it, it is really difficult. But because it's within the line of what I recruit for in terms of software development. I will pick up directly with you after this and see if I can offer anything that will help, because yeah, there should be some things I can advise in terms of the CV and the LinkedIn profile.
Perfect. So we've got another question. I'll open it to the panel, and whoever thinks they'd like to answer it, reach out, or we can do a couple of different answers. So it's a saturated market. How do you differentiate yourself other than by price and portfolio of clients?
What do you mean? What, like us?
You mean like a candidate, right?
Yeah.
I think so. It's not worded.
Yeah, I think
which market is it out of interest? What's your area of expertise?
It says recruitment.
Oh.
So basically, how do you differentiate yourself other than price? So obviously salary or day rate.
Candidate in the market. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Taylor, you want to go?
Yeah, no, I just meant which market is the candidate working within, because then you would actually be able to get specific guidance from one of us, hopefully. But yeah, it is difficult to distinguish yourself, especially at this time when competition is, I'd say, higher than ever. But companies are still hiring. We are still all inundated with requests from companies. So the biggest thing I'd say is proactiveness. Keep on calling recruiters who you know can place people like yourself. Keep on making sure that you're at the top of their mind, updating your CV, posting on LinkedIn, just being present is, I'd say, the biggest challenge. I think Alex would be definitely the best person to give advice on how to maintain social presence on LinkedIn, etc.
TikTok and Instagram too, please, and thank you.
TikTok. Is there a recruitment market on TikTok?
I'll find it. Don't worry.
Yeah, my first thing I think of that. So if you're a candidate and you want to stand out more than what your CV says and more than what salary you're looking for, I guess right now as well is a really good time in terms of extracurricular. So in terms of educating yourself in something, learning something new. I think we all appreciate sometimes how busy we are when life is normal. But now what I would be doing if I was a candidate looking for a job is doing something different to top up what I already do. So let's say 5.5 years of recruitment, let's say tomorrow, for unforeseen circumstances, fingers crossed it doesn't happen, I have to go and get myself a new recruitment job. My my CV would do what it needed to do. It would talk about my years, it would talk about my skills and stuff, but other things from my point of view. So it could be project management, it could be actually learning about the industry I recruit for more. I could do a Udemy course on software development, things like that are extracurricular to what your actual day job is. This is a perfect time to bolt them onto your experience. So it's hard to know where the question came from in terms of industry, like Taylor says, but this is the time now, in my opinion, to educate yourself, do things that you haven't done before, and that's always the best way to differentiate yourself.
Sorry, go on.
I would also just say that when the candidate market is saturated, that is the perfect time for you to go niche, because the more niche you are, the more you're going to really stand out. If the candidate market is saturated and everyone is doing everything, well, then you're just going to blend in. So, Ollie, you gave an example of yourself as a candidate. If I was a candidate looking for a new job, people on social media and everything will know I do financial crime for fintech. So I'm going to completely use that as my own unique niche market that I focus in and completely capitalize on that, even as a candidate. Rather than saying, oh, but I can also do risk. I can also do that. No, I can't. That's not my unique selling point. So find your unique selling point and stick to it. Don't let go of it, and see where other places or other companies can add value from it.
I'd say a lot of people have gone with two approaches in this time. One approach is really generalizing your CV, generalizing where you're applying yourself. And like Alex said, it's definitely the wrong approach at the moment. When there are so many profiles coming to us every day, we're not looking for generalists. In the contract market, for instance, sometimes a generalist who is available is good enough for me to put into a contract. At the minute, because there are so many people sending their profiles, we're looking for very specific things. So tailor it to exactly the role you are looking for that you can deliver the most value on. And also only put yourself forward for those kind of roles. You might be thinking, okay, I'll chance it with this one, which is outside my area, but you may then have to waste a lot of time in managing that process when realistically it's not going to lead anywhere. So use your time well, use it efficiently, and make sure you are connecting with, again, recruiters who are specialists in that specialism.
Thank you, guys. So another question through. So different industries approach recruitment in different ways. On a broader level, where are the main places you'll find new job opportunities in the current climate? Should we start with you, Ollie?
Yeah, sorry, I was reading another question as you spoke. Where's the main opportunity? Where's the main places to find new opportunities?
Yeah.
So there isn't an answer in terms of there's one place where everything lives. That's the most important thing, and that's where we talk about having a process and creating a plan about how you're going to get a new job, because there is not one place where all jobs live. And I found that out today, recently, this morning. I found a website called Remote Jobs Ireland. I found a website called remotive.io. There's another one called, I'm not sure, we'll make sure we post it after this, but I think sometimes a bit of old-fashioned investigation, a bit of old-fashioned Googling is sometimes better than just relying on what you've always done, your Indeeds and your job sites, etc. There's, in terms of the market at the moment, a lot of remote jobs. There's a lot of remote specific job boards out there. Obviously, LinkedIn is a great source. Make sure you have your alerts set up on LinkedIn for when jobs go on there. But yeah, again, going back to the industry you're in, find a recruiter in your industry that should be able to give you some quite specific advice on that as well. So, like, for example, CW Jobs is a good tech job board. I recruit for tech. There's Irish Jobs if you're looking for a job specifically in Ireland. That's a good job board there. But for Taylor and Alex, that they're not going to be the right thing. So it does involve a little bit of investigation. It definitely lives in more than one place. So make sure you do a bit of investigation and create yourself a process, identify some good job boards that have relevant roles, set up the notifications and the alerts on them if they have that facility, and make sure you keep on top of them. So we will do a blog after this, I guess, and we'll post some ones that we know or we've seen before, but they will all be very industry specific.
Amazing. Okay, we've had another question through.
Have you seen that we've had a question from Immaculate in the Q&A function?
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at.
It's a good question.
I'm in transition from FMCG, finance and audit, over 8 years, looking to transition, very interested in the health and pharma industry. How may I sell myself? Shall I also take internship positions? What do I do? How can we assist?
Taylor, go.
So one thing I do say to candidates, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, Amanda, is that stepping into the pharmaceutical or medical device industry from any other industry is going to be tough. You are going to be stepping into one of the most highly regulated industries in the world, and also one that everyone does want to get into, because although there are a lot of barriers to entry to pharma and medical devices, people who focus and specialize in that industry can then step into any they like. If you're specifically within FMCG at the moment, then you do need to focus on transferable skills. So if anyone doesn't know, FMCG is fast moving consumer goods. It's anything that's produced in high volumes like pharmaceuticals, but they won't adhere to the same kind of regulations. So my advice is always take a step back. There are always ways to get into the market. However, it's going to be very difficult to step over in a parallel position, because there are going to be 3 to 4 other candidates who are offering their skills or services who have focused in that industry. If you are happy to take a step back, it shows to the hiring manager that, one, you are really doing this for the right reasons, and that you are the kind of person that is facing it head on and challenging themselves. But for market access and pricing, that's a difficult niche that I'm not 100% clued up on, more strategy than engineering, which is what I do. But I know that market access is very transferable between industries. So really sell on your CV similar projects. If you've worked any cosmetics, if you worked in any healthcare products, that's going to be a huge sell, and that's the easiest way into pharma. But if you send your CV over after this chat, I can provide an email address. I can give any guidance that might help, and also put you in touch with some clients that might be worth reaching out to.
Amazing. Thank you, Taylor. And we've had another one through from Joey Ironbar for you, Alex. So he is...
I'll reply to him separately on that. Yeah, Joey, happy to get in touch. I've already got you on LinkedIn.
She'll get you on TikTok.
Okay.
I'm 100% searching that the second.
I'll drop you a message about that, but don't worry, we'll get you up on our system.
Amazing. Okay, we've got another question through Q&A.
You'll see that Darcy's come to join as well, by the way.
Hi.
Darcy might ask a question soon.
All right, another question. What is more important, long-term relationships with candidates or with companies?
Candidates.
Yes. Yeah, that's a tricky one, but if as a recruiter, I would say absolutely candidates. Yeah, candidates are king, especially in candidate short markets. Yeah, the wheels are turning at the moment. Things are changing a little bit, but in candidate short markets that we all operate in on this webinar, yeah, candidate is king or queen, of course.
Amazing. Okay. And another one through. It's not what you know, it's who you know. What are the main benefits of networking?
So yeah, we went through, in terms of similar question at the start, we talked about it creating a personal touch in your applications. That there's nothing more impersonal than a CV, unfortunately, and we are all seeing that the CV, it's not dying out, but there's much more now to a CV than getting yourself a job. But still, unfortunately, 90% of the cases it is needed. But when it comes to networking and finding a job that way, it creates much more of a personal touch. Personal recommendation is worth 1,000 CVs. So yeah, if you can put yourself in those positions, if that's networking events, meeting new people, or relying on existing relationships, it will help massively over a CV.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Trust and Soda do a number of events for networking within their specific markets. So Women in DevOps is a great example. And we in the other companies here, so many success stories of people who have gone there, who have networked with hiring managers or other people in the industries and have found the perfect positions for them. And almost every industry has those kind of events. So do your research, find your local ones. And yeah, just don't be afraid to get involved. I'm sure they're a lot of fun as well.
Agree. We do actually have our first Women in DevOps webinar next week. Woo.
When's that? Next Thursday?
Next Thursday, online, be there, 6:30.
Oh, I think just on that as well, some people probably feel shy going to networking events, or they feel a bit awkward or stuff like that. I get it. But just remember that everyone knows it's a networking event. You don't need to beat around the bush. If it's called a networking event where you're there to network, people expect it. Like, it's kind of expected that you do. No one's going to say to you, oh, why are you talking to me? Of course not. It's the whole reason you're there. So it might take a little bit of a push and a confidence boost to get there. But then once you do your first networking event, you're like, okay, it's expected. That's what I'd say.
Agreed. No, couldn't agree more. So generally speaking, is it easier to deal with HR managers directly or with the hiring person? Ooh, do you want that question?
I don't want it. I don't want it.
Is that, I guess that's referring to dealing with HR manager or the hiring manager, I presume, in an application process. Or that's strict one. That's case by case. I'm sure some companies, the HR manager will have a lot of the decision making power. Some companies they won't. It's it's a bit of a case by case. But as a blanket answer, I guess the person that you'll be working with or working for is probably the one that you want to impress the most. So difficult one.
I'd say I've seen so many examples of where people should have got jobs and they haven't because they've not followed the process. If a company is putting you in touch with a HR manager and she or he is managing every step, don't go outside of that because you think it'd be more worthwhile to speak to the hiring manager. It really can disrupt your chances. Follow the process, work with who they want you to work with. And yeah, that's probably the best way to get it done. You will obviously meet with a hiring manager and be able to speak with them. I'd say for feedback, which is a different topic, one of the things hiring managers love is people directly messaging them on LinkedIn and asking for interview feedback, successful or negative. That is who you should speak to instead of a HR manager who might not have all the answers. But yeah, in general, just follow what the process is for that specific company.
Okay. And I know that we touched on building our networks and the importance of networking, but what would you say the most effective way is to build your network in the current climate? Obviously we're all working remotely and we're having to adapt and change with what we're currently the new normal, as it were. So how do we build our networks online? What's the best approach, would you say, just to round things up today?
I've had this conversation with so many candidates over the past 2 weeks, and my top kind of exercise at the moment is take a list of 20 companies that you either look up to, or they've got good name, or somewhere you might want to work in, and then type into LinkedIn that company, follow them, keep up with their updates, connect with the people that are decision makers, you know, potential people who might be your managers, and connect with them. That is a brilliant networking opportunity. And then if they do accept, follow up with a message. Nothing wrong with that. And then your name is there in that community. That's it.
Does anyone else have any ideas on how you'd build out your network during?
Yeah, so the phrase I remember using last week is, and Alex touched on it there, is market mapping. So in terms of building your social presence, it's as simple as building your engagement and your followers. I know that sounds really silly, but increasing that is what we mean by your social presence. And at the moment, like, LinkedIn is the best place to do that. But to do that first, before you do all of those things, post videos, post content, post statuses, message people, before you do all of those things, I'd advise mapping your market. So like Alex says, what companies to follow, what alerts to set up, what industry am I trying to focus on, understand who hires in that industry, in that geography. And once you've got that baseline, then you can start increasing your social presence with content, with statuses, with industry articles, whatever that may be. And Taylor made a good point, the proactive nature and the process nature. So you can't just do it once. Have a plan, do it regularly, and keep doing it. And yeah, you will see the benefits, definitely.
Amazing. And Taylor, did you have any ideas on how you build out your network in the current?
I'd say I'm probably like the opposite to Alex in terms of how kind of good I am at LinkedIn. But I used to be quite nervous to put myself out there on it. But what you do need to remember is it is a networking site. You see countless people gain really great opportunities off the back of just doing the basics. And I've learned over the last 2 years that people don't cast judgment on what you write, and in general everything's very positive with feedback, and yeah, you could really achieve something off the back of it.
Perfect. Amazing. So I think we don't have any more questions coming through. So yeah, I hope we've given you, our listeners, the tools to equip you with your job search. If you do have any other questions, please do feel free to email us. I'll email everyone after this and just give you an update. But yeah, thank you for sharing your evening with us. Thanks to you guys, Ollie, Alex and Taylor, for taking your time to discuss your recruitment tips this evening. Please do join us next week for our third webinar. So next week we'll be discussing interview tips, especially remote interview tip guidance. But for now, please do stay safe, stay home and take care, and we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Lucy.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Can you